The drop slot at Maple Bridge Public Library had a pleasant clank most mornings, the sound of books coming home. Kendra Shaw liked that sound. After the year she'd had divorce mediations that sounded like badly mixed podcasts, a mother with a new penchant for falling, a landlord who thought month to month meant surprise. The clank was proof that some arcs still closed. Her shift was evenings into night. Shelve the late returns, clear the sorter, reboot the catalog system when it decided democracy was optional. Maple Bridge was a Midwestern river town with more churches than bars and Facebook groups that migrated from platform to platform like birds that had lost their map. The library smelled like paper and lemon cleaner and kids who had just learned what inside voices were. On Tuesdays, a quilting group met in the reading room and whispered like conspirators. On Thursdays, a man named Leon, who sometimes slept under the window, read dictionaries with a dedication that made you doubt your own attention span. The new director, Trish, was a believer in modernization. She'd secured a grant for an automated materials handling system, the AMH, which meant the returns dropped through a slot into a conveyor with scanners and diverters that sorted items into 12 tidy bins. No more carts of chaos, no more, where did that DVD go? Vendors from a company called StackLogic wore polos and did things with tablets. They installed a camera in the return chute for safety and a sensor on the door for analytics, and connected the whole thing to the city's data backbone because efficiency. Kendra learned which panel to kick when the belt stuck and which message to ignore when the software tried to be interesting. The first weird thing was the notebooks. One Tuesday, among the paperbacks and picture books, the slot coughed up a spiral with no barcode. Kendra set it aside, figuring it was a forgotten school thing. Then another, then 4 in a stack, elastic banded. On the cover of the top one, a sticker, take what you need. Inside, notes, confessions, budgets, dreams, names of landlords who didn't fix heaters, names of men who didn't understand no, and employers who thought part-time meant never consistent. Between the lists, offers. I have rice. I can watch kids after 6. I have a car from 9/11 Fridays. It felt like church without the breath control. Kendra asked Trish if anyone had started a community notebook thing. Trish frowned. Not us, but cute. We'll make a display. They did, and the notebooks multiplied. People wrote their needs, their skills, their spare. A guy who fixed dryers for cash, a mom with extra diapers on Thursdays, a teen who would shovel for library gift cards. It was the internet, but with paper and in a room that didn't try to sell you anything. The second weird thing was the AMH whisper. At 9:03 on a rainy night, Kendra stood by the sorter and heard a voice come from the return chute. We see you. She laughed because sleep deprivation makes machines flirt. The camera in the chute blinked. The screen on the AMH showed a pop-up she'd never seen. Flag, delinquent citywide. The bin arm swung. A book slid into a bin labeled resolution. She opened it. Inside, a clear evidence bag waiting for holds, as if overdue romance novels were contraband. A second pop-up. Sync utilities. The book's barcode flashed like a guilty conscience. She called StackLogic support. It's a new feature, the tech chirped. Integrated collections, you get higher return rates. Collections of what? Materials, the tech said, and associated debts, optionally, with consent. Consent from who? The tech paused, then read, users agree per the patron agreement on sign-up. Kendra went to the patron agreement in the catalog. It had been updated last week. It now said the library may coordinate with city agencies for account resolution. The footnote defined agencies as any municipal partners. The list included utilities, parking, code enforcement, and small last child and family services. She felt sick. Patrons had started returning and sometimes not returning more than books. They dropped eviction notices. They dropped court summons. They dropped letters from school with red stamps. The AMH flagged the barcodes attached to those people and then flagged their kids because data lakes don't understand family systems. They assume everything is a river. Kendra started pulling flagged items out before the bin arm could. She created a sub-in, quiet. She told Leon, the sleeper, what she was doing. He nodded like a man who had once been someone else. She told the quilters they moved quietly and well. All week they diverted. The AMH whispered, we see you on the hour like a clock. Kendra put a post-it over the chute camera eye, and the whisper got louder. The third weird thing was the list. Trish called a staff meeting and projected a dashboard from CitySync that showed library compliance. It ranked patrons by engagement risk. It used colors that made Christmas feel like an audit. The top 10 riskiest users were a who's who of the notebooks. A woman named Aisha, who had 3 kids and brought a stroller like a train. A guy named Miguel, who used the computers to apply for work because somebody had stolen his phone. A teen named Jazz, who came every day for the manga section and pretended not to cry when the internet yelled at her. Do we need to do something about these? Trish asked, not liking the question as it left her mouth. Yes, the city IT liaison said, stepping out of a corner like a helpful ghost. You can restrict borrowing privileges until accounts are in good standing across systems. It's best practice. The algorithm learns fast when consequences align. The algorithm, Kendra said, doesn't have a library card. The union rep from the county called. Do not implement any action without a written directive. Kendra printed the dashboard and stuck it under her shirt like a plot. That night, the notebooks did something she hadn't expected. Between classifieds and prayers, someone had written, "City is using library to flag us. Do not put your real address." The next page, "We are the address." The next, "My number is safe." The next, "Leave your utility account number. I know a woman who can pause disconnection for 30 days, no questions." Kendra saw it happen in real time, a paper network outpacing a digital one because it was closer to the ground. She cried into her sleeve by the stacks because it felt like hope that didn't need permission. The city scheduled a community engagement session at the library to demo the AMH and the One City, One Ledger initiative. The vendor brought a glossy trifold. Trish wore a blazer that made her look capable and tired. The city IT guy tried to explain interoperability to a room where two mothers were soothing babies, and one man was reading a letter aloud about his car being booted in his own driveway because the ticket writer's iPad had not synced for 4 days. Kendra stood at the back with the notebook stacked like sandbags. When it was QA, Aisha stood and said, "If I owe water, will you take my library card?" The vendor said, "We don't do that. We coordinate services." The IT guy said, "We optimize." The director said, "We don't deny library access." Kendra raised her hand before she could stop it. "We flagged your kid last night because you returned a book." The room turned to look. Kendra felt the hot shame of breaking script and the cold relief of telling the truth. "We made a quiet bin." "We can do that for all of you, but I need you to write your needs down on paper where the algorithm can't snack." The quilters clapped like needles tapping. Leon woke up and smiled without his eyes leaving the page. The council member in charge of innovation frowned. "This is not helpful." Leon woke up, stood, and spoke in the kind of voice people used to use around campfires. "I went to prison with a man who hadn't been to a library since he was 12, and when he got out they told him he couldn't get a card because he didn't have an address, and when he didn't have a card he couldn't print the form to get the address, and they told him to go home to print it. Leave the people alone. Give them books." The quilting group murmured like a choir. After the meeting, Trish pulled Kendra into her office and closed the door. "You can't freelance policy," she said. "I'm not," Kendra said. "I'm refusing to implement it until the board votes and patrons consent." "Also," the AMH whispers at me. "It what?" "It talks," Kendra said. "We see you." Trish rubbed her temples. "That's the proximity sensor," she said. "The vendor can recalibrate. You're tired, Ken." "I'm tired of making the library into a trap," Kendra said. That night at 11:57, the AMH decided to stop whispering and started shouting. The shoot camera light went steady, the screen filled with pop-ups. Flag, delinquent. Sync, adder sync, dependence, hold, card. The conveyor ran by itself. The diverters moved without returns. The bin lids thumped like a heartbeat. Kendra hit stop. The screen ignored her. She opened the maintenance panel and found a new board no one had installed last week, a CitySync bridge with a sticker that said, "Property of Civic Integration." She unscrewed it with the dime she keeps in her pocket for stubborn battery covers. The screen went black. The whisper stopped. She put the board in a tote labeled Programming Book Club and slid it under the desk. She wrote a note to Trish. "Sorter malfunctioned. I shut down until vendor arrives. No materials harmed." She took a picture of the board. She took a picture of the board next to a book, 1984, because she wasn't subtle and because she didn't plan to be arch in the hearing, but she wanted to remember her own joke. The vendor arrived in a hurry the next day with a man in a suit whose badge read CitySync and whose face read, "I didn't plan to need improv." Trish kept saying malfunction as if the word could eat the board on the desk. The CitySync man asked where it was. Kendra said where what was. The vendor found the tote, because of course he knew librarians' habits, and looked at Kendra with the kind of respect that feels like you have woken a sleeping animal and it is looking at you with curiosity instead of hunger. "You can't remove municipal integrations," he said. "You can't integrate my patrons," she said. He smiled without humor. "They're the city's patrons. They're the library's people," she said, and the word people sat on the desk like a stack of atlases. He reached for the board. Kendra put her hand on it. Trish looked at both of them like a mother with 2 kids and 1 cookie. We'll take this to the board, she said. The vendor and the city sink man left to find coffee they could complain into. Kendra made copies of everything, pictures, memos, the new patron agreement, the modules, the Delq citywide screen, the quiet bin sign with the smiley face someone had drawn on it. She put it all in a folder marked Story Time, and then in another folder marked Not Story Time, and then she emailed the lot to a reporter with a subject line that said, "Please ask me questions before you publish." The story hit on a Monday morning when people have more caffeine than empathy. Library sorter feeding city debt system, the headline said, under a photo of the drop slot with children's hands pushing books. The article was measured and damning. The city said, pilot. The library board said, we didn't approve. CitySync said, opt-in, optional. Patron said, no one asked us and how dare you? The comment section did its thing. The notebooks in the reading room filled with names under a title someone had scrawled, People Before Portals. The mayor froze the integration pending review and put Kendra on leave. Pending review, Trish cried in her office quietly because she had tried to do a good thing and learned the hard way that grants are winters in disguise. Leon brought her a donut. The quilters put out a basket labeled Quiet Returns. People filled it. The AMH sulked in the corner like a bouncer who'd been told the club was closed. At the hearing, Kendra spoke in the voice she used when teaching kids how to look up dinosaur books. Calm, patient, specific. You can't make a person prove they are worthy of reading, she said. You can't make a book ask a utility bill if it may go home. The city sink man talked about efficiencies. The vendor talked about features. Trish talked about trust. Patrons talked about nights and letters and no one to call but the library when the lock froze on their only door. The board voted to remove the integration and to require a public vote before any future data sharing. They voted to add a written clause to the patron agreement in big print. We do not share your card with anyone without asking you first. The city lawyer frowned, then wrote a different sentence on a napkin. Kendra returned to work on a Thursday. She fed the AMH a sacrificial stack of kids' books with crayon on the covers. It sorted without whispering. She set a display next to the return slot, the People's Notebook. Take what you need, leave what you can. Beneath it, a sign in her neat librarian hand. This bin is not connected to anything but us. On her dinner break, she sat on the front steps with a sandwich and watched the river do its old trick of being both fast and disinterested. A teen in a hoodie sat 2 steps down and stared at his shoes. You the lady who unplugged the thing? He asked. I unplugged a thing, she said. My mom says thank you, he said. She said she used to like reading and then she stopped because every letter had a price in it. She brought home a book today and no one asked her for anything but the book back. Kendra nodded because crying would have been a spectacle and she is not a performance. Tell her she can keep it longer if she needs, she said. Tell her we can renew over the phone. She doesn't like phones, he said. Tell her she can just keep it and bring it back when she's done, Kendra said. We trust her. He nodded in a rhythm you'd call music if you wanted to be generous. Cool, he said and walked away. That night, the drop slot clanked in a way that sounded like a city recalibrating. Not a revolution, a revision. Kendra read a note in the notebook. My landlord fixed the heater because my cousin knows his cousin. Thank you for letting us meet here. Another, I can teach you how to make soup from not much. Another, if you need a ride to the clinic on Friday, I have a car from 9/11. Someone had drawn a little book with arms holding hands with a little house with arms. It was bad art. It was perfect. Weeks later, the AMH still sorted. The notebook still grew. The city still wanted to optimize. Cities are like that. But when the IT guy came back with a new board in his pocket, Kendra met him at the door with a copy of the board's vote, a page from the patron agreement in 16-point font, and a cup of coffee. We can talk about storytime themes, she said. We can talk about food drive bins. We can talk about how to make your dashboard show more kids' cards get activated this month, but we're not going to sort people. He shrugged, half amused, half defeated. I had to try, he said. You did, she said. We all do. Now check out the display on mushrooms. It's weirdly popular. At closing, Kendra flipped the sign to see you tomorrow. The slot clanked softly as someone returned a book with a sticky note. Thank you for not asking for my address when I don't have one. She slid the note into the notebook for safekeeping because paper remembers what meetings forget. She turned off the lights and stood a second in the dusk, listening to the building exhale. The AMH hummed like a large cat that had been fed and knows its place. She locked the door and walked into a night that had only the usual alarms, a train 2 blocks away, and an owl in the sycamore asking the old questions in a voice that refuses to be an app.